The observation deck of the Galactic Council's xenobiology station hummed with the nervous energy of a dozen species, all watching the scene unfold through reinforced crystalline panels. Ambassador Thisakar, her chitinous plates clicking with anxiety, leaned closer to the glass. "This is madness," she hissed. "The human should not be in there." Below, in the habitat module designed to simulate the volcanic plains of Krethos Prime, a lone human sat cross-legged on the obsidian sand. His name was Dr. Marcus Chen, and he appeared remarkably unbothered by the fact that a Kreth juvenile, apex predator of one of the galaxy's most dangerous worlds, was stalking toward him with deliberate steps. The Kreth cub was hardly small. Even at 6 months old, it stood nearly as tall as the human's shoulder, its midnight black scales gleaming like polished armor. 6 eyes arranged in a predatory arc across its broad skull tracked every breath Marcus took. Its jaw, already lined with rows of serrated teeth designed to shear through titanium-reinforced prey, hung slightly open as it approached. "Someone stop this," muttered Commander Vex of the Armada Guard, his 3-fingered hand hovering over the emergency extraction button. "The moment it strikes—" "Wait!" interrupted Dr. Sala, the station's head xenobiologist. Her compound eyes reflected a dozen versions of the scene below. "Look at the human's posture. He knows what he's doing." Marcus did in fact know what he was doing. He'd spent the last 3 months studying every scrap of data on Kreth behavior, cross-referencing it with Earth's own predator psychology. The Kreth were vicious, certainly. Adult specimens had decimated entire colonial outposts. But they were also intelligent, social, and more importantly, they were still animals. And Marcus had grown up on a ranch in Montana, hand-raising everything from wolves to bears. The cub circled him once, twice. Marcus remained still, his breathing slow and even, his gaze fixed on the middle distance, looking at the creature without the direct challenge of eye contact. The cub's nostrils flared, sampling his scent. Then, with the lightning-fast movement that made Kreth so terrifying, it lunged. In the observation deck, several diplomats cried out. Vex slammed his hand toward the emergency button, but Marcus didn't flinch. The cub's jaws closed around his hand, not with the bone-crushing force it was capable of, but with the experimental pressure of a creature testing boundaries. Marcus felt the razor-sharp teeth press against his skin, felt the warm breath of the predator against his palm. A single reaction, a jerk, a cry of pain, a show of fear, would trigger the animal's prey drive. He would be dead before the emergency systems could even deploy. So Marcus did something that made no sense to any species in the galaxy, except his own. He stayed perfectly still and began to hum. It was an old tune, something his grandmother had sung to him when he was young. The melody was soft, rhythmic, completely at odds with the mortal danger clamped around his hand. The cub's eyes narrowed in confusion. Its grip loosened slightly. Then Marcus did something even more incomprehensible. He smiled. "It's okay, little one," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "I know you're just curious. I know you don't mean harm. Not yet, anyway." The cub's head tilted, a gesture so remarkably dog-like that it would have been endearing if not for the fact that this creature would grow to weigh 3 tons and hunt in packs capable of taking down spacecraft. Slowly, carefully, Marcus began to rotate his hand within the creature's mouth, not pulling away, but pressing gently against the roof of its palate, the same technique he'd used with wolf cubs back home. The pressure point worked. The cub's jaw reflexively opened and Marcus withdrew his hand, bleeding from a dozen puncture wounds but intact. He didn't look at the wounds. Instead, he maintained his position, his other hand moving with glacial slowness to his pocket. "He's going to get himself killed," Thisakar whispered. Marcus produced a small piece of synthesized meat, Kreth nutritional supplement, approved by the xenobiology team. He held it in his bleeding palm, offering it at chest level. The cub's nostrils flared again. It could smell the blood, smell the fear chemicals that Marcus's body was involuntarily producing, smell the offering. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the cub did something that made every observer in the deck fall silent. It lowered its head. Not in aggression, not in preparation to strike, but in a gesture of submission that had never been documented in Kreth behavior. The predator, born and bred to dominate, to hunt, to kill, bowed its massive skull before the soft, fragile human. Marcus reached out with his uninjured hand and gently touched the space between the cub's eyes. The creature's purr, a sound like grinding tectonic plates, rumbled through the habitat. "Good," Marcus whispered. "Very good," he offered the meat. The cub took it delicately, almost carefully, then settled onto the obsidian sand beside him. Within moments, the apex predator had curled against the human side, its breathing synchronizing with his. In the observation deck, no one spoke for a long time. Finally, Dr. Sala broke the silence. "How?" she asked, though no one in particular. "How did he know to do that?" Commander Vex, who had studied human military tactics for decades, who had read about their wars and their weapons, their capacity for violence and their stubborn refusal to surrender, surprised everyone by answering. "Because," he said slowly, "humans don't see predators as enemies. They see them as potential friends." He gestured to the scene below, where Marcus had begun gently running his fingers across the cub's scales, examining them with scientific curiosity while the creature that could have torn him apart dozed peacefully. "They domesticated wolves," Vex continued. "They keep reptiles as companions. They rescue apex predators from extinction and weep when they die. They see something dangerous and their first instinct isn't to destroy it. It's to understand it, to connect with it, to see if perhaps, against all logic and survival instinct, they can make it family." Below, Marcus looked up at the observation window and gave a small wave with his bandaged hand. The Kreth cub, sensing his movement, opened one eye lazily, then closed it again, content. "They're not the strongest species," Thisakar said softly. "Not the fastest, not the most advanced." "No," Vex agreed. "But they might be the bravest, or perhaps the most insane." "Is there?" Dr. Sala asked, her voice filled with something between awe and terror. "A difference?" No one had an answer, and he